Hello students, Climate Creek Panthers. I am Mr. Etzel, host of this cooking show, Cooking with Mr. Etzel. That's me. I'm really excited for today's recipe. We're going to be making peanut butter cookies, and these are an old secret family recipe from my grandmother. So let's get started. But first, make sure you wash your hands, clean your area where you're going to be cooking, and make sure you have an adult to help you. Let's do it. Let's talk about the tools we're going to need for this. So first of all, you're going to need a mixing bowl. Now I'm using a wooden mixing bowl. You may have a glass one at home. I like this wooden mixing bowl because I'm going to be mixing the cookie dough, and we're going to be doing a lot of stirring, and it's going to, take its toll, and I like using a wooden one for that. I also have a smaller bowl. You could use a glass bowl or whatever kind of bowl you have in your house, and this is going to be for mixing some of the dry ingredients later on. You're also going to need a wooden spoon. That's going to come in handy as you are making your cookie dough. And for another step, when we mix the dry ingredients, that's like the powdery stuff, I'm going to use a whisk. If you don't have a whisk at home, you can use a fork. That's just for the stirring. And another tool you're going to need is a spatula. This is going to come in really handy to get our peanut butter out. Okay, first things first. We've got our mixing bowl here. And we also have our peanut butter. Now my peanut butter is in this measuring cup, 3/4 of a cup. Now to get 3/4 of a cup, this measuring cup is actually 3/4 cup. But if you don't have a 3/4 cup, you can use like 1/2 cup plus 1/4 cup, or you can do 1/4 cup times 3. So 1/4 cup, 1/4 cup, 1/4 cup would equal 3/4 of a cup. So I'm gonna use my handy dandy spatula to get this peanut butter out of there. Pretty good, pretty good. I'm just gonna work on that, try and get as much as I can. If you leave a little in there, that can be a little afternoon snack that you can eat later. So just kind of in there like that. Next up, we are gonna add in our Crisco. Now Crisco, as we mentioned in my lectures, is vegetable oil, and they hydrogenate it, which means you take vegetable oil, which is liquid, and they make it solid. So that's what we're going to be using for our cookies instead of butter. And this is going to make the cookies super moist. As well, we have our brown sugar. Now our brown sugar, the measurements for this are 1 1/4 cup. So to get this done, I have 1 cup and 1/4 cup. But you could also use like 1/2 cup plus 1/2 cup plus 1/4 cup. And you can see in there, it was really packed in there. When you measure brown sugar, you can either scoop it in or scoop into the cup. You want to really pack it in, and that's how you get consistent measurements with brown sugar. So we got our brown sugar in there, and then the next is the 3 tablespoons of milk. I just put it in this big measuring cup. Should we get all that in there? And if you're lactose intolerant, you can find the lactate milk, or you could use almond milk or whatever your preference is. We are also going to add our vanilla. This is going to give us a nice flavor. Okay. At this time, you're going to get quite a workout. You're going to use your wooden spoon. You're going to cream all these things together. Now, normally I would use a mixer, but because not everyone has a mixer, I'm showing you how to do this by hand, and it's going to take some time. First thing, I'm just going to kind of mix it all up. right, at this point you can see everything's pretty well blended. Now I'm gonna add in my egg. Now I like to crack my egg on the side of the bowl. Some people like to do it on the counter. Whatever works for you. The important thing is do not get eggshell into your cookie dough. You see here, cracking the egg. Now if for some reason you did get eggshell in, you can use the eggshell to kind of fish it out. Now the important thing with the egg, now that we put the egg in, we want to just stir it. So I'm gonna kind of break the yolk there if I can. And I'm going to stir until just blended. So I'm not gonna use too much power here. All right, now when you get to this point, set it aside. Now at this point, we're gonna mix together our dry ingredients. And dry ingredients are typically ingredients that do not contain water. Now we did have some sugar, which you might think is a dry ingredient, but actually because it attracts moisture, and it has some moisture, we consider it a wet ingredient. So let's add in our flour. And from earlier, we had 1 3/4 cups all-purpose flour. And to get that, I did 1 cup, 1/2 cup, and 1/4 cup. So here's your fractions for you. 1/2 cup plus 1/4 equals 3/4 of a cup. We have 1 cup of flour. So you could also do this with like 1/2 cup, 1/2 cup, 1/2 cup. That's 1 1/2 plus 1/4. So let's dump in our flour. And the reason why we are mixing this separately and then we'll add it in is because with baked goods that require flour, there's what we have called gluten formation. You might have heard of that before, gluten. And gluten is what happens when you have flour and there's moisture in there. It starts to form this mesh, and that's what's gonna make it like really chewy. Let's also add in our salt, and let's add in our baking soda. We're gonna use either a whisk or a fork to kind of just incorporate that so that it's all really universal by the time we add it into our peanut butter dough. All right, at this point, we have our wet and our dry. We're gonna incorporate this in. I'm gonna have it just like that. And I'm gonna mix until just well blended. So from the outside in. This part, I'm actually gonna switch back to my spatula. That's one thing about being in the kitchen, you always have to improvise. So my wooden spoon did a great job in the beginning, but switching to the spatula allows you to get everything. Get that cleaned off there, set that aside. We pick this up and move from the outside in. Just really incorporating that flour, that baking soda, and that salt into our cookie dough. And as I do this, you can kind of feel it's starting to get dry. It's gonna make a really nice cookie dough. All right, as you can see there, everything is really nice and blended. Almost all the flour is incorporated, and it's really thickened up. Now this next step I like to do, you don't have to, but I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes. I'm gonna cover it, put it in the refrigerator so it doesn't get any smells, you know, cover it with plastic wrap. And it's gonna get a little bit more hard. And so when you use it later, it'll be easier to make the cookies. And while you're doing that, you can work on your dish. All right, as you can see, the cookie dough firmed up a lot in the refrigerator. I got all my dishes cleaned, and now we can make the cookies. So I have a baking sheet here, and I'm not going to grease it. Sometimes in cookie recipes, they'll have you spray the pan or use butter and grease it, but we don't need to do that for this recipe. And in fact, some recipes will even have you put parchment paper down, but we don't want either of those because we want kind of the metallic of the baking sheet to interact with the molecules of the cookie, and it's gonna give you a really nice underside of the cookie. So I'm gonna take my cookie dough here, and I've got a measuring spoon. You can use just like any spoon you have at your house. I like to be consistent. Some people, maybe you have a cookie scooper, you can also use that. So about that much, kind of in a ball. And just gonna make it into a ball. I'm gonna put them about 2 inches apart. And the reason why we space them out is because when you bake them, they will flatten out and melt, and you don't want them to, you know, make one big giant cookie. Now I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to make a little crisscross pattern. Because why not? So many of our cookies kind of a unique little design. So this is a cookie recipe that's been in our family for a really long time, since we were kids. You'll find cookie recipes on the internet, some of them are like only 3 ingredients, and I guess that's fine, but these cookies, really unbelievable. And you can even take like a Hershey's Kiss and put them in the middle if you want, or a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, I've seen that. All right, now they're ready for the oven. All right, at this point, we've got our cookies. The oven is preheated. Now, as I open the oven, I want to be careful, because if I stick my head here, you know, I might burn my hair. So you open it really slowly, almost like a 1, 2, 3, and my rack is in the middle. And when I check my cookies later, never put your hand in here. I need an oven mitt. Just remember that. So I'm gonna shut that. In about 7 to 8 minutes, they're gonna be ready. Keep a close eye on it. All right, my timer went off. I got my oven mitt here, put it on my hand, and I'm gonna open my oven. Oh wow, those look great. Hope they smell as good as they, hope they taste as good as they smell, I should say. All right, the cookies have begun their cooling process. Now I'm gonna transfer them to a cooling rack. If you don't have a cooling rack, that's all right. You just let them continue to cool for about 5 to 10 more minutes. I know it's really tempting to just want to bite into it, but all right, these cookies have been cooling. I got one here. I want you to look at the bottom. See how nice that is? It's got a nice brown color. So with that brown sugar, it kind of gives a caramelization taste, and that's why we didn't put down parchment paper. Let's take a look, see what the inside looks like. Perfect, really soft on the inside. And over time, it will get harder as it continues to cool. And there you have it. That's how you make delicious peanut butter cookies.